The Browns' internal crisis has finally erupted as head coach Kevin Stefanski, cornered by ownership and relentless public pressure, reportedly told Shedeur Sanders, "I was wrong. I should have had your back." What sounded like a moment of humility was, according to insiders, far from genuine. It was an organizational mandate, a forced apology driven by angry sponsors, restless season ticket holders, and the viral number Free Shedeur campaign flooding social media. Overnight, what looked like a fractured locker room shifted as players felt a sudden wave of hope, but beneath the surface, this is no fairy tale. It's a calculated move to save face, to protect the franchise brand, and to keep chaos from spilling onto national television. Now, with emotions raw and power struggles exposed, this apology could either spark a new era or trigger an even bigger collapse. 3 weeks ago, this storm quietly began when reports from training camp revealed Stefanski repeatedly favored Dillon Gabriel in first-team reps, even though Sanders was outshining him in practice. 2 weeks ago, preseason film showed Sanders creating explosive plays but still getting minimal opportunities. Then, just last week, anonymous coaching leaks questioned his maturity and preparation, painting a narrative that he wasn't ready. By yesterday, respected insiders like Mary Kay Cabot were already reporting that the relationship between coach and quarterback was beyond repair. And then, in a stunning twist, everything reversed overnight. An apology on the morning of a crucial game, a complete shift in tone, and a sudden declaration that Sanders would finally be embraced as the franchise quarterback. The speed of this turnaround tells you everything. It wasn't natural, it wasn't organic, it was pure outside intervention. Behind closed doors, the power struggle became undeniable. Sources say ownership, led by Jimmy Haslam, called an emergency meeting after sponsors and minority owners complained about the damage this quarterback feud was causing to the team's brand value. General manager Andrew Berry, who had invested heavily in both quarterbacks, reportedly pushed for a public reconciliation, warning that the internal dysfunction was creating a competitive disadvantage before the season even truly began. The message from the top was clear: fix the problem now, or risk turning the Browns into a national embarrassment. That's why Stefanski's sudden apology didn't feel like a moment of growth, but a forced surrender under pressure. It was ownership flexing its power, drawing a line in the sand, and making it clear that, from this point forward, Sanders was the priority, whether the coaching staff liked it or not. For Stefanski, the weight of this reversal is enormous. Once praised as a rising star who built his career on discipline, preparation, and culture, he now finds himself forced to bend to pressures far beyond the playbook. Friends say he even reached out to former colleagues like Mike Zimmer and other coaching confidants, searching for advice on how to survive this impossible situation. Some told him to accept reality and protect his job. Others reminded him that in the modern NFL, a coach and quarterback must always appear aligned, even if behind the scenes it's chaos. To a man who built his reputation on control and consistency, being ordered to apologize wasn't just humiliating, it was a public reminder that ownership now dictates the direction and his role is to fall in line. While Stefanski wrestled with pride, Sanders carried himself with surprising calm. Teammates say he never lashed out publicly, never called out the favoritism, and instead leaned on the advice of his father, staying patient and letting the pressure build naturally. He reportedly told players in the locker room that he expected resistance, that adversity was part of the journey, and that eventually his talent would speak louder than politics. So when the apology finally came, Sanders was caught off guard, not because he doubted it would happen one day, but because he had braced himself for a season-long battle to earn respect. What makes this moment different is that Sanders didn't celebrate or gloat, he accepted it quietly, keeping the focus on the team and the bigger goal of winning. That kind of composure under fire only strengthened the belief among teammates that he was already their leader, with or without Stefanski's blessing. The apology didn't just shift emotions, it forced the entire Browns offense to change overnight. Offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt immediately tore up the game plan designed for Gabriel's precision passing and scrambled to install a scheme that fit Sanders' mobility and explosive style. Coaches rushed to add design runs, rollout plays, and deep shot opportunities, while linemen were briefed on new protection calls that had barely been practiced. Receivers were asked to adjust their timing on the fly, learning new routes in a single walkthrough. What normally takes weeks of preparation was being crammed into hours, leaving many fearing disaster. Yet, the belief around Sanders was that his improvisational talent could cover the cracks, that his ability to create under pressure might turn this chaos into an unexpected advantage. It wasn't just a new playbook, it was an entirely new identity built overnight. Inside the locker room, reactions were split. Veterans who had spent years buying into Stefanski's culture suddenly saw him reverse course under pressure, and not everyone trusted the change. Some, like Myles Garrett, urged the defense to block out the noise and stay focused on their job. Nick Chubb, still fighting his way back from a devastating injury, offered Sanders his full support, telling teammates they needed to rally behind him. But others, like Joel Bitonio, the longest-tenured Brown, voiced frustration that the quarterback position had turned into a circus. This mix of emotions revealed the deeper truth the team wanted to win, but they also knew instability could derail everything. The locker room wasn't just watching how Sanders played. They were watching how long this uneasy truce between coach and quarterback could really last. The ripple effects stretched far beyond the locker room. General manager Andrew Berry, who had poured valuable draft capital into both quarterbacks, now faced the reality that ownership had forced his hand. Sources say he wanted the competition to play out naturally, giving both players time to prove themselves, but Jimmy Haslam's intervention made that impossible. Now, Berry's credibility is on the line. Executives across the league see this as capitulation, a GM bowing to business pressure instead of football judgment. Ownership, meanwhile, made no secret of its stance. Sanders isn't just the future, he's the franchise. And Stefanski's job now depends on aligning with that vision. What looks like a clean apology on the surface is, behind the scenes, a battle for power, influence, and survival that could reshape the Browns' entire identity. National attention immediately locked onto Cleveland as the story spread like wildfire. ESPN and Fox rushed to pivot their coverage, turning the Browns into the headline of the week, while CBS leaned into the drama to hype their primetime broadcast. Social media exploded with clips, memes, and debates, pushing number Free Shedeur to trend even higher. Former players chimed in with hot takes, some calling it a turning point, others warning it was only a temporary bandage over deeper wounds. Meanwhile, fans flooded radio shows and forums with split reactions, some celebrating Sanders finally getting his chance, others skeptical that a forced apology could fix years of dysfunction. Merchandise sales spiked, ticket holders who once threatened to walk away started reconsidering, and suddenly the Browns, a team long mocked for instability, became the most talked about franchise in the NFL. But with all the hype came the same question hanging over everything: was this reconciliation real, or just another chapter in Cleveland's endless chaos? As kickoff approached, the Browns weren't just preparing for another divisional game, they were stepping onto a national stage, carrying the weight of weeks of dysfunction, an apology that may or may not be sincere, and a quarterback who suddenly became the face of the franchise overnight. For Stefanski, every decision now feels like a test of loyalty and survival. For Sanders, the only path forward is proving on the field that his talent justifies all the chaos. And for ownership, this gamble must deliver results immediately or risk plunging the organization back into ridicule. Fans will watch every throw, every sideline interaction, every result on the scoreboard to decide whether this was the start of a new era or just another messy chapter in Cleveland's painful history. In the NFL, apologies mean nothing without wins. And tonight, the Browns will find out if this fragile reconciliation sparks a renaissance or collapses under the weight of its own desperation.